minutes, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I thank the ministers for joining us. Today, I will direct my questions to Minister Vandell. Today, Minister, it's nice to see you again, and I hope you're doing well. You spoke about quite a few topics that I'll hope to get to them all in your remarks. But one of the big ones we've been talking a lot about, we've been seeing a lot about in recent reports, is about housing in the north. We know that there are housing shortages and housing issues with mold, with disrepair, with overcrowding across the territories, across northern Canada. In particular, Nunavut has been is especially has many challenges, and I do know that the government has allocated funding towards this. You spoke about that in your remarks, but the closing the gap is also something you say a lot, and the gap still remains quite large. Even with this funding, and it seems to me that a lot of the bureaucracies that have been created are not really getting the funds where they need to go to build these units in some cases, but as well, your government's sort of anti-development approach to many projects, I believe, has also made it so that there are no real incentives for developers to do their work as well and build new units. So I'm wondering if you can comment to that. Given that your government has spent so much money, as you like to talk about all the time, but the results for people across the north it's just not getting the job done right now.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that very important question on housing in the north and in Nunavut. And you're absolutely right. The gap is huge, and the gap was made even larger when previous to 2015, 10 years of complete non-funding by the previous government only exacerbated an already bad situation.
You have been in government for 6 years.
So since being elected in 2015, through our $70 billion national housing strategy, our government has helped over 9,000 northern families on housing issues, including finding homes for thousands of them. We've signed 10-year housing agreements with all three territorial governments, which were non-existent before, which will invest close to $800 million over those 10 years. We've signed a $400 million housing agreement with Inuit right holders, which will invest housing in Inuit and Nunangat. And in the last budget,
Minister,
we're all allocating an extra $1.5 billion in rapid housing.
You know how many units have been built in the territory?
Since 2015, we've helped 9,000 northern families on issues concerning housing, including several thousand new units.
Okay, so that'd be 9,000 housing units were built?
Not 9,000. We've helped 9,000 families on important housing issues with at least several thousand homes in the north.
Okay. By your estimate, by the Department of Work, how many units would you say are still needed?
Hey, listen, the gap in northern housing is huge due to chronic underfunding by previous governments, and I'll be fair,
and your government as well,
including some of our previous Liberal governments, but mostly zero funding for the previous 10 years by the Harper government. But I will admit,
Minister, your government has been in power for 6 years.
I will admit we need to do a better job in breaking down barriers, not only in Nunavut, but in Northwest Territories and in Yukon. In NWT, we've put together with the government of NWT a high-level Tiger team with senior deputy ministers from both governments to really take those barriers down. I think the funding is there. Why it's not flowing in as adequate a pace as it should needs to be addressed, and we're committed to working with all three territorial governments and Indigenous governments to do just that.
I'm happy that you mentioned that and that you acknowledge that, Minister, that the funding isn't flowing down where it needs to go. I think that's very important because you do cite a lot of figures. As I mentioned, you're always talking about the funding that's going out the door, but we need these units.
Better is always possible.
That's the bottom line.
And that's my philosophy. We can always do better. Any government can do better.
And yours certainly has to. So thank you, Mr. Chair.